Good evening. We're about to start the MUC's Utilization Committee, and I'm going to read the statement regarding COVID, and then we'll go into the agenda from there. This is formally advised as required by General Laws, Chapter 38, Sections 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20, the Acts of 2021, an act relative to certain COVID measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law June 16, 2021, and extended by Chapter 2, the Acts of 2023, the MUC's Utilization Committee will hold a public meeting on Wednesday, November 6, 2024 at 6 p.m. in Conference Room A, Town Hall. Public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the agenda online. So the presentation, what we'll do is go through this, and then it's pretty much goes through each of the items that are in the agenda. So if everybody wants to introduce themselves to start off. John, you're up at the top there.
Sure, John Anderson. I've been a full-time resident of Yarmouth for probably 8 years now, 10 years total. I've been on the finance committee for a little over, I don't know, maybe a year and a half. And I've spent my career working in supermarket retail for different companies around the country.
I'm Lindsay Pietro. I'm on the capital budget. I have been in Yarmouth for 20 years. I've got 2 kids in schools here, and I work for a nonprofit educational company.
I'm Sharon Weimer, and I've lived here since 1978, I think. So I've been here quite some time, raised 2 children, and volunteered in many different ways and activities, and too numerous to mention, I guess.
Great. Andrew Laird, I've been here since 2018 full-time. I've been coming to the Cape since I was a kid. Interested in this program and then where this thing heads. I have 2 children and glad to be here.
Do you want me to go now?
Sure.
The last. My name is Roby Whitehouse. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director in the town of Yarmouth. I've worked for the town of Yarmouth for over 25 years in various capacities, but for most of that time within Public Works. I am a Cape Codder, several generations here on Cape Cod. I grew up in the town of Dennis, raised my children here in the town of Yarmouth, and call it home, and am very vested not only in this project, but everything to do with this town, and am very grateful for the opportunity to be your alternate representative.
So introduce myself. I'm Bill Scott, the Assistant Town Administrator. I've been here for about 3 years. Most of my background is in development scenarios, private, public partnerships, incentive and other financing and capital programs. So most of it is project management, all of these types of things. And Barbara, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, folks. I have had recent surgery, hence I am not physically at the meeting, but I have been on the Cape since 1996 and 30 years in IT, and the last 20 in public education. I was the Director of Technology for the Bourne Public Schools for 11 years and 9 years for the Nauset Public Schools. So I'm actually kind of excited to be participating in this utilization committee, and I look forward to working with you folks and seeing you physically at the next meeting.
So have the introductions done, and we can do this 2 ways in terms of the organization. We can try to elect a chair, vice chair, or secretary now, or usually I recommend you do it at the end of the presentation so you know what you're getting into. So
That's a good recommendation.
we can do that, or do it at the next meeting when everybody is here. So the membership, and this is as much for the public as it is for the committee, has 7 members, member of the Finance Committee, Capital Budget Committee, and members related toward certain professions like real estate, government, regulatory, environmental project management. One of the keys to this was the board didn't want people on it that have a particular weighted interest, so they didn't want that to happen, so it doesn't direct it to a certain conclusion before we even begin. Everybody should have been sworn in. If you haven't, you need to go to the town clerk and you get that blue folder, which has documents in it such as a conflict of interest, open meeting law, and sexual harassment policy. If you have any questions individually or as a committee, feel free to reach out to me. You want to review the materials, and you know, it's important to understand that we take care of all your public meeting processing and agendas. So that's a section that you should understand, but you don't have to put all that together. So the select board charge, this is sort of the mission statement, as it were, create an effective reuse plan with multiple alternatives. So I've highlighted some of the keys there. You would have inclusion of the many interests in the property in an impartial manner with alternative scenarios. They've chosen economic, cultural, recreation, tourism, housing, parks, community centers, educational. And then we would develop plans, profiles, and renderings with cost estimates and things like that. ME Small is on the table, or that site is on the table with this project. So we are doing the entire site, as you saw earlier, the aerial photograph. Just as that's the old middle school. This is the ME Small School. Solar, and then these are recreational fields that are used by the town. We have a lot more detail than that, obviously, but just as a. So one of the things that sometimes happens in committees is a lot of multiple layers of opportunities, but there's also multiple organizations that would have interest. So to manage all that, I've recommended a scope here that I think will help the committee rather than sitting in a room, developing it with a consultant and then coming out and holding it up and saying, here it is, and then have all those groups come and say, you forgot this, you forgot that. We're going to involve them sort of more directly. And so we want to include multiple approaches to multiple groups. So at the end of the process, did you think about X? We wanted to have thought about X, Y, and Z. And if there's an opportunity, we want to bring those groups together. And we're fortunate, we have a lot of committees in town that have specific skill sets in housing, recreation, economic development, and other organizations that we want to employ in the way we've set this up. So the beginning of the process is administration. We form the committee, chair, vice chair. Right now, there's a consultant updating the 2014 cost estimates in terms of what's wrong with the building and what needs to be done to bring it up to code. So it's been 10 years since the school department did their study. Our consultant is doing that, and with the help of the Public Works Department facilities, they took them through the building and gave them a lot more detail than was in the original report. So we should have their report hopefully by your next meeting. In addition to that, what we're doing is we're actually having our communications department do a video of the site. Because you read those reports, so it's got windows, it's got this, but our communications department is going to take the report, and basically if the report is the novel, the video is the miniseries. So that way the public can look at it and say, oh, now I see what they mean. There's a stain on the floor and there's a leaky roof. Or the boiler has issues and you might be able to see some of those. So the video is going to be a good way for the committee to articulate what's wrong with the main building, because that's really your cost center. It's costing you money and it's going to cost you money to do something with it unless we find something that has grant money and other things. So when I mentioned that working with other community groups, we would be reaching out to town organizations, and look, this is a proposal, so you have the full ability to say, let's do it another way. But this is probably the shortest line between 2 points, because you're bringing in other organizations to help you at the same time. So we would reach out to those organizations. I'll show you what I mean later. And at the same time, you're doing the RFP for your consultant. So we would write the RFP, but there might be scope items you would want in it, and our RFP is request for proposals. And then we would hire your consultant. The consultant we have on board now is purely technical. They basically are engineers that assess things, so there's no real policy direction there when they're saying this part is, needs work versus this part. So this consultant though will be working with you on policy related items. So here's some of the groups we have in town under those categories. So housing, we have the Housing Trust, Housing Committee, Housing Staff, Community Development Staff, Recreation, the Commission staff, and user groups such as leagues. Economic Tourism, we have the Community and Economic Development Committee, which is town, Chamber of Commerce, Community Development Staff, obviously in Education School Department. This isn't really something that was articulated in the charge, but it is too crucial to not have them at the table. We don't want to have an eventual proposal that we have to peel back because there are issues of open space, conservation, water. And then municipal social services wasn't there either, but invariably when you do these studies, somebody says, why can't we put the blank department out there? And so let's get that on the table, ask the departments, and sort of make it an issue before we go too far. So that's what that looks like. You are at the center, and the liaisons comes from the capital committee. They appoint 2 people to each department who go to the site or the equipment and take a look at it and then report back. What this does is we would appoint liaisons to each of those groups. I don't think you need it for municipal services and open space and water, the top 4. And then you would work with those groups and they would develop a proposal for the site, a maximum proposal and then a moderate. And they would come back to you, and your consultant and you would work on putting all those together. The advantage of this type of scenario, and I've used it in other projects, is you could develop the project, but then these groups are going to come out and say, we were thinking this and we were thinking that. So you end up spending consultant money when they might be able to give you direction right out of the gate and then become your partner. So what they are able to do then is bring their knowledge, their data to the table to look at a proposal for you. So you would work with those teams. They would return proposals. You and the consultant, you and the committee would then reconcile them and say, there's too much of this, too much of that, or do we want this at all? And the advantage here is they're going out and doing some of their own studies, like Recreation has money for a field study. They can then give you more data and information on fields because they can target it to filing a proposal with you. So you develop a plan with the consultant from input. So the advantage is if you're looking at a critical path, there's several groups working on the proposal to then come to you to develop, the eventual proposal. That doesn't mean that you're telling them to go when you're not doing your work. There's more to that than this. From a perspective of reaching out, the groups will reach to their outside groups. So it might be housing would work with other outside groups. Economic development would work with businesses, event planners, or whatever. Your group would work with the select board and the public. So they would rely on some of the expertise that is out there in the public. They would sit down and say, what do you think about this project versus that? And by that, you're, again, getting more people out there, and there's actually more transparency because each of these groups, they have to hold public meetings. So you're actually getting more resources to the table right away. So if you look up at the top, November to January, we're doing that. February to April, we have a consultant is selected because we did the RFP in the first quarter, as it were. And then what they do is typically when you have an asset like that, you have the costs that will bring it up to code, your baseline costs. But now what we're going to do is just run some numbers. If I did residential there cost per square foot, what would it be? If I did commercial, if I did housing, if I did office. And that would give you a continuum of, if people, as they return their proposals, you can say, well, that's gonna be pretty costly. We're starting with X millions, because the last report, I think, was almost 20 million to bring it up to code. And then we're going to add to that what the cost might be. So different land uses have different costs. Obviously, residential, running all the plumbing, the wiring to each unit is gonna be more costly than maybe office. So the consultant is giving you a good idea here with the original report to say, here's what happens if you try these land uses. So we're giving the, a lot of people are saying, let's tear it down. We want to make sure that, there isn't value in it before we do that. Then your meetings begin, and so you would go out and meet with your teams, and I'll do that with you. And we'll have sort of a guidebook on what they need to deliver back. And so you might hold 3 meetings, and I've already talked to some of the groups that, irregardless of what your scope is, they should participate. So a lot of people are looking forward to sort of being part of the dialogue. So May to July, the RFP goes out for the land use teams, and I think we can move that up. I think we could do that sooner, but then we do benchmarking. Now, what this is you would, with a consultant, go out and find like projects, and you probably won't find one like this. So we might break it up and say, what does an affordable housing project look like? What does a event center look like if you use the auditorium? What does a ball field project look like? If the schools come to the table, then you're really not gonna get into what does a elementary school look like, but so you would have a body of existing work. So as you review the proposals, you can say, why don't they try this? So you're gonna be hopefully more in tune with the types of development that could occur here than each of the individual groups. They give you the proposals in late July, and then you begin the process of working with your consultant. And if anybody wants to ask questions along the way, anybody, each phase.
Well, you whiz by them, so.
All right,
I
well,
have to say that,
why don't we stop on the first group? You're right, I am whizzing by it.
Yeah. and,
So this is,
and I'm fine with that, because I can go back and read, but
Right.
I initially read once
yeah,
your packet. So in terms of my quick read, I was confused about the liaisons, and so you whiz by the 2 liaisons from the capital and the finance. I don't know who that is, and I.
no, I'm sorry, I misspoke. The capital has liaisons, that's the model. You would serve as liaisons to each one of these groups.
Oh, okay,
And usually you have 2 people as a liaison, so if somebody can't make it, you always have a backup.
okay.
So you would choose, I want to be part of the housing group, I want to be part of the economic development group. And then you would sort of self-appoint yourself.
And are there other liaisons out there?
No.
So in reverse?
No, they would choose who's gonna be the leader to come back and speak to you.
Okay, so that's not a liaison, it's their speaker.
So
Okay.
they would, let's say you have a meeting and you wanna get all these groups in the room, you don't want their entire committee, so they
Right.
might send 2 people to basically try to tie it all together. Cause the difficulty here is if everybody wants a piece of this, as it were, let's get them to file proposals, find out where the opportunities and constraints are, and get them in a room and try to pull it together. You still have a lot of leeway in the sense we probably want 3 alternatives. And you can see is if you ask the experts of each of these groups, what would you do? There's a lot of layering you can do there in terms of, you can come up with 3 alternatives pretty easily. I've been in committees that sometimes you get in a situation where they can do the first alternative, the second, and then the third one is like, well, so I think you'll have enough information if they're giving you a maximum proposal and a moderate. And each one of them is giving you 2, so you have 8, and then now you're trying to put all that together. And this moves, hopefully will move quickly if they get engaged. And if they don't, you move ahead.
Mhm.
Because I think this group could just as easily sort of fill one of those circles. So we give them the opportunity to get involved is really what we're doing.
Okay, and then one other of your, I'm not sure it was before or after, so I apologize, your screen
Yeah,
shot. Right there, oh, I'm back. No,
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not very good.
There. so, and I'm just gonna give you an example. So you have a education and you have school department, and that's all you have. So how does the person that wants to do something educationally get in if DY doesn't want them to come in?
Well,
Or-
that's a good point. I mean, we could open it up. We gotta try to figure out, like municipal social services, they might come in there. Let's say they want to use part of the building. Then they would come in on that sort of venue.
Well,
Uh,
I saw in terms of the other one, in terms of private business, because we didn't really have a private business up here, but it would come through the economic, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Do
a
you
good,
do you invite people? Do you notify people
Well-
that this committee is going on and there are these focus groups and?
right. So what they'll get is a letter with a specific target to their issues.
Okay,
And that this person is going to contact you and you should set up at least 3 meetings, and this is the sort of topic we want to see for discussion. The difficulty is we don't want to get in a situation where they're asking us questions if we're giving them an offer a proposal. So it's more that you're sitting there as a liaison and they're saying, well, we've always wanted to do this. Well, then great, flush that idea out. Don't come to the committee and say, what are you gonna do with the site? And we'll-
have it done, what you
Yeah.
want, yeah.
Yeah, and so you're right. I mean, education and those smaller uses, I mean, we could probably stick in economic development and social services, put those two together. Yeah, I think, and what'll happen is they'll reach out to other, programs. So we'll add that to economic and
I was just
tourism.
trying to figure out how someone creative out there that thinks out of the box.
Yeah,
That would be, oh, I'd love to do this over there because they have a playground over here and,
Right.
whatever. And how do they get in?
right.
I think one of the other things that you're talking about is really being present at the select board level and talking about the process. Because this committee will be representing there, and that's a great opportunity for people to see that and then find that avenue, whether it's through one of these streams or potentially to go through Bill's office, I would imagine. So there's gonna be lots
Well,
of,
I'm sure hopefully they'll be asking questions, I guess. I don't always think everybody looks at selectmen's meetings. I
Sure.
appreciate that people do, but I don't think they always do. And there's just some creative people out there,
Right.
right, that,
and that's why the request for proposal will be advertised as well.
Yeah, and swell, we're going to target the groups, but to your point, I think you're right. I think we need to open up because the difficulty of this project on a continuum, it's one person maybe wanting a classroom
Mhm.
to a developer wanting the whole site. That's a
Right.
pretty wide range. So by creating the groups, you're trying to, look at what would the mix be. But you then also have to drill down to the building, because one of the reasons we have early information on the building and its costs is those people may be creative, but we might not want to keep the building because there's no financial driver to keep
I
it.
think that's a great point, yeah.
Yeah, so what we would do is if they have a great idea, how do you, there's been discussion about keeping the auditorium and the gym and putting a building on it.
Right.
So that's maybe where it comes from. And what we want to do is with these groups is have them join each other. So you might find that creative idea has legs working with the chamber and the CEDC,
That's right.
and they come in with a joint proposal. We did a
Well,
project,
you've got the Chamber of Commerce, right?
yes,
So I would assume that would be a great list to
right,
have a letter go out on.
yeah, and what
But
they,
it still may not hit everybody, but yeah,
yeah, I mean, the idea is each one of these groups, they are very active, especially housing groups, so
mhm,
they have their constituencies they can reach out to.
yeah,
And then they're going to develop their plans with their constituencies, back to that sort of, that model. That we can't really touch all the people that they know,
Correct, right.
but they can. And then our job is to basically say, this is what we're hearing. to the public so that we, the people that aren't affiliated with those groups can hear it from the public. And so each milestone, you're going to the select board. Because sometimes committees go through this process and it wraps up at the select board and did you think about this? Did you think about this? Why did you do that? We don't want that to happen. Because we can't turn the boat around, because of timing. Timing is very important with this too. Finance committee. So,
If I could ask a
Yeah.
question,
Sure.
just so that I could understand the gist of this process, the land use teams are basically going to submit a proposal to the MUC,
Correct.
which we will review and present publicly and so forth. When they present their proposals, they will of course be aware of all of the costs associated. For example, if it was $20 million to update the building,
Right,
then they would of course have those figures budgeted into their proposal. And then, of course, once everything gets approved and processed, it goes to town meeting and then it would move forward from there, if I understand the gist of this correctly.
yeah, after you finish it's at the end of the presentation. It's most likely gonna go out to request for proposals for developers. So whatever your plan is, some of this is built by the private sector. So we're not building a wholly municipal taxpayer dependent facility. So, some of it is that if it involves, municipal buildings, but you're right. I mean, they give the proposals, we may not get drilled down into them trying to solve that whole building cost, but if somebody comes in and says, I need 5 classrooms on 156,000 square feet, we would understand that's not gonna carry the building. So, but we might see that they have a great potential, so how much of the building are we gonna reserve and how do we program that into it? So that's the beauty of this is by having everybody come to the table, you and these groups can parse together something that can involve creative people who might be doing a smaller project. But the danger is going classroom by classroom. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Barb.
Do you know if any of these groups already have expressed interest? I mean, I asked this because the reason we built a new school was because the cost of updating the building was so expensive. So
Right.
I would assume that the land use teams are aware of this information even before we proceed presenting or working with them.
Right, and it may be that you as a committee decide to dispose of the building based on some of those cost factors. Because I mean, if you've got to start with a price tag that doesn't get you anything new, you start to think about, can I build a new building and get the same thing done that's more efficient?
I think that's what we're leaving to the people who will be making proposals to decide, right? Like, if I'm a big company with deep pockets and it is no great shakes, that's a different consideration than like coming to our taxpayers and saying, can we have more money for public use things? So you know what I mean? Like, I think step one will be, we're gonna get an analysis of bringing everything up to code. Whoever might be interested can evaluate that and proceed or not. And then as people come to us with different proposals, then that's what we're sort of presenting to the public and to the select board.
And to your point, Lindsay and Barbara, is I think that having the baseline information and having somebody come in and say, I want to use this portion of the building. It's pretty realistic that they might not be able to carry the building. So that's a decision to make and say, they're gonna bring 25,000 a year in lease payments, and it costs us 200 to run the thing. So we don't want to be underwater on well, that's a good pun considering the basement.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Okay.
I assume we're also taking into account Board of Selectmen goals.
Yeah, well, that's actually why if you look at their charge. I'm gonna use a down arrow. More often. If you look at their charge, you basically, multiple alternatives, achieving a proposal for you, inclusion of many interests in an impartial manner, alternative scenarios, these uses, so. This system kind of lends itself to that, and yes, you might have a situation where this small group who wants to move from their building and expand might want Matakees, but. It would be better if they bring other people that could carry the cost of the building, because we really can't afford to have that size of building without the revenue to support it. So, there may be some alternatives. I mean, when Chris came here, we were thinking, let's put every municipal use in there. You know, but then the cost of the building was gonna be too problematic versus maintaining the existing buildings we have. So there's a lot of alternatives. We just want to get into one that almost pays for itself. And there is a way to do this. I wrote a report to the board when we started, where you leverage money from one type of land use and grants to then pay for another type of land use. And so they're gonna propose their projects, and myself and the consultant are gonna try to put it together with outside funding. So some of these committees may not know those programs, and we'll do sort of the fiscal impact analysis and figure out how much it costs. You know, there's a quote at the end, which I like to use, and it used to be in my other office: vision without execution is hallucination. Thomas Edison. And so our execution has to be that when we give this back to the town, we say, and here's how you can pay for this. Vision is important, but just it's not dump it on an engineer's desk and then say good luck with that. So.
Well, I think you have a couple other things in here that are kind of interesting to me, which is a clear, open mind
Right,
to whatever is proposed, and that's why I'd love to hear every proposal
right.
that has merit. And then the other thing I like is brainstorming, you know, to be as wacky as you want, to give out ideas, so.
How do you wanna, I mean, we could do that we can do that in the benchmarking, but that might be a little too late.
Well, I just like the two processes.
Oh, no, I agree with you
Yeah.
that, you know, you wanna have that opportunity, but sometimes. You wanna give the people who would normally be the ones who would be doing this,
Sure.
they have their say, but then you also brainstorm parallel to them.
Right,
So, you know,
well, maybe that's as a liaison too, to the
Right.
groups, maybe
Right.
that's where we go, I don't know.
and I think that what the benchmarking does for you, I've always put this in projects,
Mhm.
is no town is an island, you know, you can't
Right.
put yourself in a position to think there's no good example out there. So we will search for the good examples.
Right,
There's one, I did a new report, which is a theater that used to be a firehouse. And it was proposals like this, one was a theater group, another one was a retail group, another one was a housing group. And the theater provided more ripple impact in the downtown. So it's a Firehouse Civic Center right now. So you get those kind of proposals that look at those other ideas, and that's where you start brainstorming and saying, wow, this kind of could fit here.
right,
And that means somebody else has spent a lot of money doing their study.
right,
So we might move that up to a sooner time, that way we can start the brainstorming.
Right.
All right, so anything else on the first phase? And I'd rather you do this than rethink it later. I mean, please ask questions as we go through this. If everybody likes it, and as I said, we'll write a letter from your eventual chair to each one of these groups. I know the contacts, and say, here's our process. Here's how you fit in, here's your liaison. And then the RP comes out after you talk to them, because you might find out that the group is highly sophisticated, and do you want this kind of information or not? Or that they need help and you don't want to create an RFP that has them chasing information they're never gonna get. So we'll develop the RFP after you meet with them. first. And what this is great is that if somebody has a housing concern, they go to this group, which goes to you, which goes to the public. So they can come to you. But I mean, it allows them to coordinate. We really want to get these groups to work together. Because invariably, if you look at each one of these groups, you could have 5 groups for each one of those bubbles. And you're looking at 20 people coming to the podium and saying, this is what we think,
Yeah, right.
you know?
No, it's a good development scheme, I think.
So.
It's just I worry about someone not being included.
Yeah, that's-
And that
you're
they
right.
can't participate.
So you know what I think we need is, we need a bubble that covers something that's a catch-all. Why don't we basically
Well, you
say,
have it pointed to outside groups, so I assume there's some sort of communication or letters that might go to libraries and, you know.
oh yeah,
all-
they'll be in the municipal services one.
Yeah,
They've talked about various sites, so I'm gonna sit down with fire, library and others, regardless of their interest, and say,
Mhm.
what do you think? Now, you know, I think what we can do is a catch-all that would cover smaller groups, that we would get them all in a room. And then we might point them to one of those groups up
Bigger,
top.
yeah.
Somebody in the cultural area
all
might
right,
want to work with economic development or
Mhm.
recreation.
right.
So it's like a brokerage or clearinghouse for that. But you're right, people of a project this size can get lost in the shuffle.
Hmm.
So we've got the consultant selected and updated. This is a 3-month process. It's called designer selection. And it does take 1 month for the advertising, 1 month for the interviews and vetting, and then 1 month for the contracting. So it just takes a long time.
But you already have an engineer working?
We have a technical person right now doing an assessment of the building, and then they are what's called an OPM, owner's project manager. They will help us write the RFP and vet the company, make sure. One of the things sometimes you get with consultants is you'll get a person, and it's like, oh, that person's a perfect fit. And they have like 15 years experience, but only 2 of it is with the firm that they're coming with. So you need to really go in depth and say, is that person have the capability to do that kind of work with the firm that they're coming to the table with? So, and then they'll write a report for you and you'll do the interviews to select the consultant.
Okay.
So we take it through the legal side for you and the vetting, and then you decide who you want to interview and then do the interviews. So with the value by use type, that's usually important, where they come up with a cost model and they say, if the work to bring it up to code is 20 million, it's another 100 for housing, you know, or whatever. And then when you eventually put this out on the street, if you choose to do that, then that developer has that information. And you also have the information, because it may be that this committee decides, we really don't have a good proposal for the building and it's costing us money, so let's tear it down. There's no real approach here that's going to be valuable to us. And it's not going to be cheap to tear it down, so. Land use teams, we already discussed that, and I'll write the letter to the land use teams. I've already spoken to some people. And again, my conversation to them is, if you want to get involved, you know, we're starting a project. If you go with this methodology, then it's more of, here's the, you know, the approach you want to take. And again, we want them to come to you with a proposal instead of coming to you with the questions about your proposal. Because you could go through 6 months of developing something only to have these same people come back and say, that's not what we thought.
We didn't say that.
Yeah, so get them involved right in the beginning. All right, so your next proposal development, they issued the RP, and as I said, I might be able to move this up. Benchmarking, maybe we should move that up. And the only reason why we do that then, sometimes when you do benchmarking, people latch on to something and say it's got to be this. So you don't want to get too educated too soon. you want the ideas to come to you, and then you do benchmarking, you say, oh, their proposal a lot like this, if they did what they did in that other town, it would be better. So we want you to be more in tune with the ideas that are out there than the people submitting them. And then they submit the proposals in late July. We give them May, June, and July to submit. So they come in and do the presentations in August. You have the ability to negotiate with them, with your consultant and things like that. We think that's too much. We think that's too little, sort of a, you know, or just too hot, you know, stuff like that. So consultants review, they're gonna go through each of the proposals and say, here's the advantages and disadvantages, and I will look through them and say, oh, they're proposing this, which has a grant for that. So we'll put together a pseudo financing plan as we do this. And then you review with a consultant and you develop your first plan. So you can imagine if each of them has 2 proposals and you have 4, maybe 5 groups, you're gonna be mixing, matching the puzzle. It may be that one of those groups, no, we think we need a lot more of this. And one of the groups is more de minimis or not there, so. You know, it doesn't take out the chance that you don't need to include every single one of those uses. And, you know, what happens during these is grants will come up, so we might, there's a brownfields grant that we might look at to clean out the materials in the building, so when we tear it down, we don't have to do that. There's other grants that might be available to help us do the planning. So, you know, we might move things up just to meet a grant deadline, slow things down, things like that. So we'll be tracking that separate from your process. So November to January, you're developing the plan and then you're going to a select board, and the vision without execution is hallucination, and slipped it in there. So when you go to select board, you have a good idea of some of the financing, zoning, utility plans. Because this is adjacent to a water supply, we're definitely looking at sewer being required for this, unless it's all open space and fields. And you develop the action items. So, all right, what do we do? We're gonna do first? We gotta do the zoning first. Oh, this grant is available on that schedule. You develop a schedule. You're gonna release an RFP if you have private development, things like that. And you lay that whole action item out. And you develop the final report, but because at each one of these steps, you're going to the Board of Selectmen. You're actually giving them the updates to chapters, so when they get the final report, they won't be surprised by, you know, not having seen something. And so the progress today, we hired a technical consultant, we're developing new cost estimates. Public Works has given us a great detail, Roby's people in facilities, on what the issues are. Every nook and cranny has been explored, literally. Communications will be doing a video. We're gonna work with departments, that is, conservation, planning to determine what the opportunity, and water department opportunities and constraints. So rather than going, you know, 3 months out and finding, oh, you can't do that there because of this wetland, we're gonna tell you where they are. And we'll try to get that, and that we'll get that a report. Then I'm working on a list of grant and other programs. They just released the economic grants by the state. So we can try to parallel this. And we've been developing the scope. So some of the discussion questions, I put some stuff up there. You know, what do you want as an outcome? You know, when do you want to meet? You know. Some of the timelines, town meeting, I'll try to align it. Is this a way to go? And you know, we can go in other directions. This seemed to me the most expedient. With the most inclusion. I mean, the great thing is, there's a lot of good people that work in the town and work in the other committees. Sort of involving them in what they're already doing means that you're going not have to learn what they know. You know, they'll bring it to the table. So any questions like that, or any other things that started dominated in
Yeah,
discussion.
I appreciate the information, so. And I think you've done a nice job of including the most without having it be a presentation to us, and that we can go to them and hear what they're thinking, I guess, talking. I'm not sure we're developing questions at this point. When we go, we're just saying. Listen.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And
Yeah.
then what I'll do is outline, here's how the process works for them, so you don't have to go through that. And then, what are your thoughts?
Mhm.
And then hopefully they'll take the minutes of all that and then it's a open dialogue.
Mhm.
What do you think should happen here? And it's that sort of topic by topic brainstorming. Then you'll come back as liaisons and say, this is what we heard from housing, this is what we heard from schools,
Mhm.
this is what we heard from economic. And you then sort of talk about that issue in the brainstorming, so that the milestones are there, but the agendas aren't, so. So you'll come back to your meeting and you'll say, well, I talked to this group and this is how they want to approach it. The key is they're not there to ask you questions. They're there to say, we're in this topic, housing, economic development, and this is what we think the town needs. And then sort of delivering that to you. It's a pretty effective model because what it does is it builds on the work that these groups are already doing. Because I've seen, these sort of projects where you isolate a site and you go about your business, and at the end of it, somebody says, oh, you can't do that. There's a restriction on that property. Or we're already doing that on the other side of town. Why are you doing it again? So getting them involved means that we can, in a real critical path, they're doing something, you're doing something, other people, and then you all meet to create the conclusion. And again, the end is you're developing the final report, and then the town then goes out and implements it. So the committee's done, you proverbial drop the mic, and you can follow it. But I think that what we need to do is from there, it's technical, it's selecting a developer and things like that. You still can be involved as you move along. But it's gonna be in the hands of a lot of staff and things like that for implementation.
When do you suppose we will have the site assessment completed? Because that's, I think, going to set us up to figure out when we'll schedule next.
Yeah, hopefully your next meeting, I think what you can do is tonight, we can sort of, if you wanna maybe do it later, elect the members, so you can think about it. But tonight you maybe can express your interest in liaison to see where we have, everybody might wanna run to one of those bubbles. And so, and then I can draft a letter from the group. And we can start that process before your next meeting almost.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I think I don't want to meet with anybody if I don't know what could be considered. Do you know what I mean?
No, I know.
Yeah.
And I think we can meet with them before we get all the data in, only because it's like, what are you thinking about? Then start comparing the data. We're not going to put them in a position where they're filing a proposal and then we hold up a report that says nobody's gonna use the building. Nice work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice work on that, but no, it's gonna be turned down. Next. So we won't do that, but you're right. I'm supposed to have it in your next meeting,
Okay,
but
and you think we'll meet once a month?
December, I think it's the beginning of the month, on a Thursday.
I thought we were deciding when meetings were happening.
Yeah,
Oh, did we already decide Thursdays, was it?
Thursdays, the room is available.
Oh, fair.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm available.
That is very.
Mondays, I
helpful,
have CIP until
Yeah.
December, then I have Board of Selectmen on Tuesdays. Sometimes FinCom, I don't go in if it's capital.
So Thursdays is
Wednesdays.
ideal. Is that fine for everybody
Usually
else?
there isn't a conflict here, so what I'm gonna do is find out the availability of room A, and right now I think it's the first Thursdays of the month. And I just wanna make sure Thursdays are okay, sometimes people have standing. You know, and if they are, then what I do is the secretary books the room. Like FinCom is all booked in CIP for all their meetings, that's why we do that schedule. But if, for the
That's
people
fine
on
for
those,
me.
yeah,
I mean, there's gonna be just some dates that are not gonna work for life, but I think generally speaking, Thursdays is fine. Is 6 o'clock usually okay time?
yeah, that's pretty much where we'll start.
Okay.
Barbara, how are you for fix for Thursdays?
I'm Thursdays work, I'm jokingly, I'm retired, so any day pretty
Okay.
much.
We're looking at the 5th.
Uh. Yeah, probably. I have a pending medical obligation, so unfortunately it is on that date, so I have to work it out, so I have. You have somebody that can move you to the next step, so it might be your next meeting, I'm having that consultant walk through with you the report, and I have to check with them. So yeah, it'll probably be the 5th, might be the week after that.
Okay.
But it obviously not Christmas week,
So 5th or 12th.
yeah.
Okay.
And then after that, I will plot out the dates if sort of first Thursday of each month works to you, then I'll give you the dates like people on FinCom and CIP know that color coded calendar. But if people were to see that, you can see the booking a room is like you know, trying to book a hotel room in a convention, especially this one, it's one of the favorite rooms.
Well, there's an idea for Medicaid.
Yes,
DPW meeting room is available.
oh, yeah, oh, all right,
It's a room this size and we have a TV where we can have somebody log in, similar software. Just as an option, you know, if.
no,
there's-
no, yeah, that's a good idea, Rob. Because sometimes during budget season. We'll
Sure,
get
problem.
bumped by FinCom or CIP, who have the,
but then we need them too, so
that's
doesn't
why
really matter.
that's why we defer to them.
Sure,
Oh, no, I see what you mean, yeah, they can't. be
their
both.
attendance is necessary.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a look at that, but I think what I'll do is I'll return a schedule to you. And then everybody will confirm it against their schedule, then we'll finalize it before we have our next meeting. And I think I'll see if I can get the consultant to come in here and talk about the building. I don't think communications will have the video done by them because they're waiting for the consultant report. But we'll make sure that, you know, there is, we're progressing on the scope at the next meeting. Any ideas for people about the liaison?
Would you put the
Yeah, sure.
Would you like us to email you our requests, or do you want us to?
Well, we can talk about them now because we might have conflicts. I know that sometimes people have favorites and. And we want to resolve them, you know, first, second. And we usually use 2 liaisons, only because it makes sure that. We have attendance and people have different approaches or ideas that 2 liaisons is more sort of effective.
I'm
And you're not
intrigued.
sitting, go ahead.
No, I was just, I'm intrigued by economic development and recreation. I should probably not do schools just because I see them all the time. I mean, like, I don't think that,
Thought you were
There
gonna be perfect for that.
yeah. Or, I mean, I would be open to doing whatever, whoever wants to be sort of a delegator of.
Yeah, I like those too. Housing, I'd be open for that.
I'm
That
open
makes
for
three,
housing.
that makes 3 of us with the recreation and kind.
I'm open for housing.
Should I leave the room and let you guys battle out?
Yeah,
I should have made a table for this,
That's
my
okay.
lack of preparation.
Well, let's just go around the room.
Well,
Let's
what-
start with municipal services. Who's interested in that?
So what does that include?
That will include interviewing some of the departments as to if they feel there's a use for their department. The only ones I can think about would be library, And whether fire has use for this, police is already next door. Education has already got space up there, so. I don't know if DPW has any interest in the site, Public Works, probably not. You got a
Downgrade your
brand new
building.
Barn. Or water department, but water's already developing, the wastewater project and things like that, so. It's really a catch-all to make sure we don't miss something. So it's less of a liaison thing, but if somebody wants to join that as a liaison, I was gonna sort of represent that one.
Okay.
Great.
No, I'm not saying I'm adding myself. I said, okay. for
Yeah,
now.
exactly. Yeah, so we'll just say Bill for now.
I'm open to another, any of the other three or four. I mean, I don't know that I have the expertise for water supply, but,
That might be a little bit like that, but you're right, that'll be Conservation Commission, Open Space Committee and Water Supply, and that's as much of a. If you think you can do that, we need to tell you that these are the areas of the site you can't, so.
well, I mean, I have an awareness because of real estate of the water behind Mattakese. There's a little wet back there.
Right,
And then there's a little wet up in the front, but it's really, I went and spoke to Brittany just about it, because I was interested.
yeah,
And, so Brittany told me that it's 100-foot section
right. buffer,
and, the one in the back don't go anywhere near the 100. I mean,
Right.
that's it, but the school is so close to it,
Right,
it's not gonna matter. And then the other one, you could build up to 50 feet from it, but that's, I don't know.
well,
that
see,
you
that,
wanna
that,
do-
that's one of the things I think we want, because there's a well right behind this, and there's
Yeah.
2 wells across the street.
Yeah,
So we want this representation, so these would be more departments that you'd be talking to rather than committees. You'd speak to the open space committee about what they see as value for trails and open space. So yeah, I think we could appoint people there. Municipal services, as I said, I can handle.
okay.
So how do we divide this up?
Anyone else intrigued by housing? Sharon?
I am.
Yeah, anyone else?
I guess, my first choice would be recreation, second econ, but I'm guessing that everything is gonna be shared within the committee, so if you need to put me on something because no one else is taking it, I'll be glad to do.
I think
Be
we
a
might all have to
liaison.
take 2.
Yeah, to, wherever you folks most need that, so.
We also should note that there's 2 people who aren't here. Right? So Joe
Who's the
Kotska
second? Joe?
Ian,
and Ian.
Oh, okay. Maybe we wanna, why don't I do this? I will make a table.
Yes.
And then you guys send me back your first and second choices.
maybe also put 3rd, and then
Yeah,
that way
third.
if you need to like slot us in the right spots.
Right. Right, and then we open an envelope at an event.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Because you could potentially
Take
fix
some
all this
space.
and have everybody have 2 and 3, and then the other folks
Right.
would come and say, what about me?
And
Yeah.
then your next meeting, we'll nail down the liaisons. I'll have the letter that we'll send out to the political contacts. And then you just set up the meetings.
That sounds good.
All right,
Yep, that sounds good.
great.
What else did you have on the to-do list for today?
And what do we wanna do? Oops. And I just lost my screen sharing, so,
Schedule meeting date, liaisons, and life between the next meeting.
yes,
Interim work.
what we might wanna do, but obviously, let's go over that without me having to stop her bringing it back up. So liaisons, I'll send on the table, meeting dates for the phases. I will send out what that might be as it relates to this room and Roby's offer. Chair, vice chair, secretary, we will make sure that we do that at the next meeting. And the interim work is going to be selecting your liaison grouping. And I'll try to get you sort of a whole bunch of links from these committees. So, all the housing committee, all their web pages. So that you can get a good look of who they are as you're trying to select, what you want to do. And then we are I gotta figure out how to set up a Dropbox, but all the studies and things like that for these topics, we might want to put in a Dropbox so that you already know what some of the issues are. Not to read everything, but that's life between the meetings.
And then you'll do the study whenever that is ready and the communications video. That will.
Yeah, I think we're probably looking at the 12th for your next meeting, so I can get on the consultant and have that available. So your next meeting might be that you appoint your both the chair and the vice chair and secretary. You determine amongst yourselves who you're going to represent the liaisons. And then hopefully I can have the consultant in then to go over what they found.
We're gonna cover that whole thing with the consultant.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got to get them to get moving on the report, and I think you won't have the report, but maybe they'll have a presentation like spreadsheets and things like that, what they discovered. And as I said, there are people on Roby's team that went through with them and let them look at everything. It was a 2-hour walkthrough, so it's quite extensive. Excuse me. So those will probably be the things for your next agenda, the organization, the liaisons, and then that report. And I'll keep you updated on whether or not we're moving forward. What do people usually use for online access folders? We use Teams, but we found that it's kind of difficult. Our security is pretty tight. People use Google. Everybody have a Google address?
Yeah.
Drive.
Yeah, okay, maybe we'll use Google Drive if you all have a Gmail address then.
You can get into a Google Drive even without.
Yeah.
Email.
You just have to set it up with their email address and allow them permission.
Yeah, you like share it with,
Okay,
Bill at. .com.
all right, then
Yeah.
we'll set up one of, and as I said, like we do for our other committees. You'll have a meeting folder, it'll have everything in it, your agenda, you also, it'll be, the agenda with the packet will be online. So that way you can go back to old video and take a look at, what we talked about, things like that. And then we'll try to get you the contacts and all that from these other committees that you can then have those as you move forward. But I think if we can get into that process sooner, then we can get them motivated to give you a good proposal. So by the time we send out the RFP, that they're ready to have, something to give you.
Well,
You mentioned the open space. Is that part of this parcel?
No, what the Open Space Committee might, and Conservation Commission, probably as much staff, the conservation side, but they might come to you and say, well, we have some trails in the area, we'd like to run them through here, we might want to keep that area as open space because it has certain natural resource, value, so. you
So,
want
but
to-
I mean, the acreage then is 17 acres or is
Yeah.
it 7? Yeah. so
Yeah.
17, and that's what was showing on your first.
Yeah, and so it's all that, but then there's other things like there's a solar lease there. Is that something you want to continue, or is there another use that somebody's gonna bring to the table?
Who owns like that?
School department, I think, wasn't it? The solar lease? Yeah, I think they own the lease. And there are solar on the building and the group that owns that, it gave me all the legal documents to that and everything else. So as you're doing this work, we're gonna do some of the background legal work and work with Kathy Williams in planning on zoning and give you sort of that background before. And, we'll marry those together. We'll get it in advance so that, again, we're not having somebody submit a proposal and telling them, and sorry, you can't do that. That they'll know about the information as you will.
great.
So the idea is to create, interim reports as we move forward. And consultants, your selection, and hopefully we get some good people. They might come in and they might say, I do the scope a little bit differently, and that's for you to sort of negotiate with them. You just gotta watch out, sometimes consulting firms, they'll come in and say, I'll do it differently, and it seems to match the other 5 projects they've done.
I
And
wouldn't
sometimes you get a report with another town name in it.
I think it would be interesting, whoever has the first meeting, to like share what is happening, you know what I mean? I know that we're gonna have someone else with us when we're in these meetings, but as like they're doing their presentations, but to not know what I even, like, I don't know what I don't know. And so like,
Yeah.
if they're, except for if they say like, this is Chicopee and I'm like, we are in Yarmouth, like, then that would be obvious, but
Right.
whatever we're all learning as we're going through it, whoever the first guinea pig is, maybe like let the others know, like, this is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the liaison meetings.
Yeah, I'm getting way ahead of what I
No,
think
no.
today is like meant to be like what is next and long term, like what the goal is for sure. And I think on that note, it's important for all of us to know that like we're not in a rush. We want to be really methodical about what we might be recommending to our townspeople and the select board or whatnot, but it's also not to be lagged on, right? Like, I think
Right.
it's important to keep momentum going because it's costing us money to let it be doing nothing, so. Balancing those out will probably be important. to-
Is the school still thinking after the SBA meeting that they are gonna do something, to keep Emmy small?
There's been some alternative scenarios that are commensurate with the opportunities that the state provides. I used to write press
What'd you say,
releases.
Bill?
Yeah.
Could you say
I
that
can't tell
again?
you.
I gotta keep up
I
with
can
you.
neither confirm nor deny, is that the next statement?
Yeah,
No, it's really up to them and what they wanna do. There was some discussion about taking a look at the location there. But then that brought up that people thought it was supposed to be at Station Ave. So yes, they have to reconcile that. But as you can see by the timeline, they have enough time to do that. And on their alternatives analysis, they may end up running a proposal by this site. And the advantage is you're here saying, well, this is how you would fit in, to all the other uses. So I can't definitively
my
say.
memory of it is having been on the school committee for
Yeah.
about 6 years, although it was after that, was that the area was right behind the school, the back of the school.
Right,
And then it was gonna add on classrooms,
right.
and that the septic had enough room for taking any additional baths or whatever they're gonna do. But that's all I really remember. Suzanne McAuliffe would really know, would be able to tell you.
Well, the board of selectmen's had at least two discussions on this with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, and they did a presentation, and I think that. They've got some, they need to understand the relationship between the town and the funding agency and what's the best method to move forward. But what we're doing is we're giving them enough time to basically say, what would you wanna do here? Now, if they choose that, can you just put a gray area on the map equivalent to our site? That's how you might move forward. Because frankly, if they wanna move forward, this is proposal. If they don't, then this is what goes on that site. So the beauty of this is they have a stake in the game, but so does everybody else. So when you're done with the report, they really should be done with or near done with, their understanding of how they might want to use the site. And if they still don't, by the time you're done, then you basically say, if the town moves ahead with the school, this is where it would fit in. And so you've got to be that kind of flexible when you're dealing with different jurisdictions. But the advantage is, as I said, we have great committees and staff that have already worked on this stuff, so that they're gonna bring that to the table, and that's gonna give us both inclusion and expediency.
I have maybe a really dumb question, but while you're here, the space can be potentially zoned for anything right now, is that correct? Or will it need to be like approved through the zoning, like,
Oh,
Town meeting, yeah.
it'd have to be rezoned to do some of the things that you're talking about. Some of
Okay.
the things could be allowed now. It's just a residential zoning.
okay,
R40.
R40.
okay.
So we want the reverse of that, 40 hours.
Exactly. I'm sorry, that's what I thought you meant.
Well, I mean, if you start throwing out ideas, if your goal is also to make money. If you can rezone less than an acre, in terms of 20,000 or, 15,000 square foot lot, that's what my home is on. But, I don't know that that would be wanted, but,
Well, I mean, you eventually.
you
we
could
need sewer,
sell
Right,
and then get taxes.
Right.
So then that's generating income and blah, 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 and then you can do something else. that's the whole beauty of just brainstorming and just throwing things out. And,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Will, I mean, if you see a gap that one of these committees hasn't brought to the table that you brainstorm, then we can figure it out. I mean, I've done enough development proposals that we can say, oh, you wanna try that? Well, then this is how it might look on a, on a table, on a spreadsheet. So, and again, I've contacted some groups and, some of them might have money, as I said, recreation has field analysis money. So they might be able to bring more detail, to the table. Why do you want this many soccer fields? Well, here's the demographics that push us to that. So some of the initial ideas might not be flushed out, but then you might go back to them and say, can you finish this? And the important aspect is part of the diagram. They need to go out and speak to their constituency. So I've already talked to the recreation director about bringing the leagues in. We don't want this recreation commission, the director, and then you, and then have a whole bunch of leagues show up at the table and say, no, it's soccer fields, not baseball, or it's baseball fields, So they're obligated to go out and say, what do you think? We're thinking of this for Matakees. And that means that you don't have to go that far out in the ranks.
which is a great idea.
Yeah, that takes a lot of time.
Bill, on the property, is there other easements that we don't know about, gas or water or?
We'll
Road,
find all
all
those,
that kind of stuff.
but your point, it was taken for school department uses originally, so we might have to go back to town meeting.
Okay.
And change the taking language so we'll have the attorney look at that.
Well,
So,
the schools did give the police land.
yeah, and we somehow, even though it was taken, own Matakees now, the building, so.
Well, it was leased, so, right? Wasn't
I
it
don't
a
know.
building leased? Although they never could find a lease. That was interesting. Yeah,
Yeah,
there was some lease missing.
well, we'll try to look for it, but if nobody else can find it, we'll move on.
Interesting.
Yeah, but you're right. There are a lot of things out there that we don't want that surprise. In fact, Kathy, you brought it up that it was taken for school purposes, yeah. So our attorney said you might have to go back to town meeting, give me the language, and that was in like 1962 or something. So we have to find the town meeting.
Yes. Burial grounds.
Yeah. Arrowheads.
Don't say that.
yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
newts,
We'll let the developer find all that.
right.
Okay, great.
All right, so if there isn't anything else, we don't really have a chair, vice chair, but a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second,
All right.
all in
Thanks,
favor?
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, yeah.
Thank you.
I think you just took the job.
I didn't